closer. How's that? Can you hear me all right? Okay. So yes, as Bill mentioned, we're almost ready to go for building permit. While we get in for building permit, so we'll start making a bunch of phone calls, see what kind of contractors are willing and able to take this project on. So everything is going very well. The purpose of tonight is to bring everyone up to speed on some of the decisions that we've made so far, and I've brought a few samples of some of the products that we're proposing to put in there, so you can take a look, just some touchy-feely things. Just a quick overview. Our mandate was to take a look at what I call the breezeway out front. The columns that are supporting that are in pretty rough shape. We've also included a barrier-free ramp that would come up and basically dump onto the landing outside of the doors. Obviously, the stairs are in pretty rough shape. They're constructed of wood right now, so we'd be replacing those. And the front entry doors, right now, the steel doors that you have, we'd be looking at aluminum storefront type doors, Conley or a product like that. We've all seen them. We're also looking at replacing the doors entering the sanctuary here. I'll go into a little more detail on that. The issue we have right now is, by code, it's considered exiting through a lobby. So those doors are, hence the wired glass that you see in the doors. They are fire-rated glass, or fire-rated doors. We've also included for replacing the doors that are going outside and providing a little, let's call it a patio area, one step down, going out onto that grassy area out there, and the two doors that are entering into that lounge as well. So just as an overview, that's pretty much what we've been tasked to deal with. I'm not quite sure how. I guess what we'll do is we'll take a look at the. We'll call up a couple of the drawings that I have, and I may jump around in terms of what's on the drawings. Most of the discussion tonight will be regarding the front area. So if Russell, if you could bring up, I have a drawing here as well. Let's go to the next, I'll give you a drawing number. If we go to A03, so it'll be the next one after that, I believe. Yeah. I won't stay very long on this particular drawing. This is a drawing that indicates the demolition in terms of what we're removing. So as you can see, we'll be taking out the dotted lines, will indicate the doors going into the sanctuary, coming down a little lower, the vestibule doors that you have. We've identified we're going to be taking up temporarily all the pavers out front. They're going to need to do some excavation for those columns. So they'll want to take them out, store them, and then put them back in. And of course, as you can see, the planters will come out and the front stairs. On the left-hand side of that drawing, there will be a new planter reinstated. It'll be out of concrete as well. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see on the next drawing, that will become a barrier-free ramp that will go down to the parking area. So if you want to go to the next drawing. Oh yeah, and as you can see, there's basically I've called up what would be removed going outside these doors here. So now you'll see all the dotted lines are now solid lines. That's what they're going to be providing or installing as new. The vestibule, you'll notice it is creeping in, and we were just talking about it a little earlier. The interior set of doors are going to have to come in about 24 inches. The reason for that is if you look on the left-hand side of the vestibule, you'll see a dimension there, the 8'4". The reason for that is by code, when you have barrier-free doors, when the interior door opens up, you need a minimum dimension in front of that door before you get to the next door. And that is why the scenario you have right now, you've got a barrier-free door on the left-hand side on the inside, and a barrier-free door on the right side. You have to do this sort of zigzag going out. Again, primarily for code reasons, you can see I've squared off the exterior walls there. They're not at a 45-degree angle anymore. They'll be, the whole vestibule will be a rectangle. You can see the barrier-free ramp on the right-hand side, which will go down to the parking lot area. They'll be reinstating the pavers, putting everything back together. All the columns will be, a little later on, I won't stay on the drawings too long, but we have details of how they're going to construct the new columns, which will be reinforced concrete block columns. If you want to, Russell, if you just want to scroll that drawing up so we can take a look at that area there. I do have, and I'll quickly go through, I do have PDFs and also have hard copies of some of the product data. I have a couple pretty pictures of the actual pavers that I'm proposing in that area. We'll get to that at the end. But basically, as you can see, it's just a level platform. The grade will come right up to the platform, just clean things off in that area. Maybe, Russell, if you want to go to the next drawing, and at the top left-hand side, just a couple of pretty pictures. This, the below part, the door and frame schedule gets a little technical. It's basically talks about the type of hardware that is going to be required. We do have a hardware consultant that's actually going to take that information and put it into the specifications. On that note, I guess I'll touch on it now. In terms of finishes, we've got a lot of decisions to make on the finish of the doors. The wood doors, I've specified an oak door, which is what you have right now, color to match as much as we can. So the contractor would submit samples and we'd look at it and say, that's close or it's not close. You'll notice there is a folder there with a bunch of little metal samples. If you look at the one, I think I slid it out a little. It's called what we call a 613 finish. It's a antique oil bronze finish. If you look at it, it looks like what you have here. What is interesting, the actual handle sample, and it all depends on the manufacturer and their process that they use. The actual door handle that I have there is a 613 finish. Doesn't look like the same. We use that's what we used on the Southminster Church renovation. So it's going to be one of those things where we will specify what we want, but we're going to have to get samples in and make sure that depending on the manufacturer, they use a different process. That handle there will if you look at it in certain lights, you'd swear it was black. But when you actually have it on a door that's been stained, it is a brown, but it's more of a chocolate brown than the oil bronze. Just a quick note in terms of so you can visualize what you're going to see. The door type 3, which is the one on the right-hand side, that is basically the vestibule doors that you're going to have. Now you will have, and I do have another catalog cut, I'll go through real quickly on that. You will have a horizontal bar going across. It'll be your we call panic bar or exit device that goes across. On the other two doors, type 1 and type 2, those are the wood doors coming into the sanctuary and into the lounge. I spent a lot of time, I made phone calls trying to find a full light glass for you. Problem is these are an hour and a half rated doors, and we can get an hour and a half rated door, but there's a limit as to how much glass you can have. And we're getting into, actually, this is a fire rated ceramic glass, no Georgian wired, so you won't see those little wires in there. But everyone I spoke to so far, that's the maximum. They say so many square inches of glass that you're allowed in there. So it's not a full, it doesn't go right down to the floor, but part of the discussions were, let's open it up, let's try and make it more inviting. And that's why you see the door or the glazing that you have right now, it's the same, the codes have, now that fire rated glass is available, we can go with a larger piece of glass. 30 years ago, all you could use was Georgian wired glass, and again, they had limits on how much glass you can put based on the fire rating of the door. Russell, if you just want to scroll to the other drawings, I don't think there's much to necessarily talk about, but as you can see, we've got details on how all the components are going to fit together. Bill had mentioned that you had some issues with your eaves trough over the breezeway, so we've got a detail in there. That detail actually pretty much came from the original drawings that you gave me. And then if you want to just scroll to the right there. Again, I won't go into the details, but that's essentially the details on how we're going to repair those columns. I think maybe go so you can scroll to the next drawing, A7. Yeah. And on the left-hand side, that's the section through those doors going outside. And again, I can show you quickly some pretty pictures. So you've got some pavers, you've got a mega block edging around it, and then the grass will come up to it. And then on the right-hand side, I believe it's, again, that's a section through your barrier-free ramp that's going down to the and I think, Russell, maybe just, the only other one, maybe A09, which is not the next one, but the one after that. That's just a very quick elevation of what things would look like from the parking lot. I didn't get into rendering or coloring or anything like that, but I thought maybe you might appreciate being able to see what it's going to look like.
Are those foundations under the pillars, are they existing now?
Yes, they are. There is a little discrepancy on the original drawings. Some of them showed concrete, some of them showed concrete block. What we've called for is to chip down a minimum of 2 feet or to solid material, dowel, and then form from there. We're trying to minimize the amount of excavation under this area. We also, there's not a lot of information on what is under the concrete that's at the outside of your pavers, like just at the edge of the paver. You've got the pavers, you've got concrete, then you've got your planter and a wood planter. We don't know how deep that goes there. So we're going to try and minimize, we don't want to undermine what's there right now. Like any project, once you get out of the ground, you breathe a sigh of relief, because it's the unknowns that deal with it. So perhaps if you want, Russell, if you want to go to back to that file, and there's one called, I think it's RMC. So we'll just go through, and you can actually call up. We'll just go through those files. I'll just quickly. So not a lot of information here for you, but this is a project. Again, it's they do make 45-minute, 60-minute, 90-minute doors, and then of course the glass. I spoke to them and specified the type of glass and how much glass we can get for your wood doors. So we could go to the next one, Russell. Yeah, we don't. You can just close that file. A lot of that information will be in the specifications that I produce. So if you want to close that file and just open up one of the other PDFs, we'll just jump around a bit. I'll quickly go through that. Go to the third drawing. Yeah. This is on the table. I brought 5 sets. Bill has, I can print more if you need. But there's the architecturals, and then there's electrical drawings. Not a lot of electrical work that we're doing, but we're obviously going to be replacing the lights that are in the breezeway. We're also going to be reinstalling, there's 4, they only showed 2, I've already told them about it. There's 4 lights that are on the outside of the columns that they'll be temporarily removing and then reinstalling. Everything out there will be reinstalled on your photocell, so they'll come on automatically. Of course, we have lights, pot lights inside the vestibule, and the exit lights we're hoping to reinstall. Again, not an awful lot of electrical work on this project. Most of the electrical, which will just be picked up as a typical detail, will be all the controls for your doors. I notice you have a doorbell, you've got an intercom system, you've got a key fob system, you're going to have an actuator, which is handicap buttons. All that has to be tied into, so there'll be a lot of sort of wiring at the doors, but we'll pick all that up. So if you want to close that PDF and just open another one, just scroll down to page 6, I believe it is. You'll see a red bubble. Again, I won't stay. This is your Conley, your aluminum storefront doors. It comes in 3 different styles, the 190 narrow, 350 medium, and 500 wide. I've specified the 500 wide, which is pretty much what you have out there. It's also a bit of a maintenance issue. Your doors are a lot stiffer with the wider styles. But again, Bill and I can talk if there's some feedback and somebody wants to slim those doors down a bit, we can always change the specification. And as you see, there will be the impression of a horizontal rail. That elevation shows an exit device. So if you want to close that file and just open another, you don't have to open the 500T because it's the same. The difference between a 500 and a 500T is basically the outer doors are thermally broken. They've got a little gasket to help with your. These are, again, I'm totally open for suggestions if somebody comes up with another product. This is one of those things where in order to show some pretty pictures, I Googled, right? And just to give you an image of what you're looking at. But what I've come up with was this Melville paver, and it is, I'm just trying to, so they're a larger, a random sizes, and I have called for I do have a sample, I didn't bring it with me, but the gray, the Scandinavia gray paver. And then the next page on that is what they call a mega block. They use it for stairs and edging and stuff. So there would be that would go around the outside, and then pavers on the inside. That would be for that out there. All the pavers here would be reinstalled. So if you want to close that file, and we'll. So I did bring a sample. This is one of the things that I understand, or Bill had mentioned that you would like. The ceiling in the breezeway, we're taking it all down. We're going to have to in order to get at the columns and such. We're going to reinstate it, so it'd be a textured finish on either side of the doors, but going out in front of the doors. Bill had mentioned you wanted something that looked similar to what you have in your the hall area. So we could go. I believe that is probably a maple that you have. We could go with wood. It becomes a bit of a maintenance issue when it's outside. So what I've come up with is a product. It's a metal panel. The sample that I have there, obviously it's not the right finish, and it's a wider. We talked about you can get a narrow. It's a 4-inch. I think it's a 4-inch or 3.5-inch piece. What's sitting on top of the sample is a metal sample that I was proposing as a finish. So it does look like your maple. This is actually called beech. So it would be similar. I put out the other samples if somebody, if you ended up not wanting to necessarily match what's there, you wanted to go with something else. There are different materials there. But that linear metal ceiling would be essentially in front of the main doors only. We could go all the way with it. It's a matter of cost. And that may be something that we bid it this way, and if, hey, we've got money to spend, we can ask for a price to extend it. It's about, what did I say, twice the price as the ceilings on the other side. I think that's about, Bill, is there anything else you'd like me to touch on? Okay. I think that's pretty much what I have. I'm more than happy to take some questions, comments, or if at some point we wanted to take a quick walk, we can, if you wanted to get closer to what we're talking about. Are there any, yes?
I asked this before at a Zoom session.
Okay.
And the question was whether or not the 4 interior doors here are now according to the code, and whether or not the upgrade
Is that me? Sorry.
whether the upgrade is, shall we say, cosmetic.
So the question is whether these doors meet code as is, or meet the current code. Yes and no. Basically, you would fall under Part 11 of the code. In other words, you're grandfathered in. There are, if you weren't doing any work to those doors, they're fine as is. The one thing that you don't have right now is the barrier-free, the actuator, you push the button, the door opens for you.
Part of the design to have that in the interior doors as well as the
Yes.
doors into the bed.
Yes. The door on the right, on the right-hand side, we've called for an actuator on that. So somebody hit a button, that door would open. But if what you're asking is it absolutely necessary to change those doors out? It's not. And I think, we've already spoken about the wish list the prioritizing. And if the prices come in and you just simply, you know, it's too expensive, that could be one of those things where you just cut it right out. And, or we look at maybe all we can do is just put a barrier, put a handicap operator on the one door. So we're improving that situation. But no, it's not, you're not forced to replace something that's been there, unless you're doing any other work around it. The same goes, I guess the last thing, in terms of prioritizing, the same goes with, you know, how important, again, if we don't have the money to do it, how important is it to deal with those doors? How important is it to deal with the other two doors? So we can pick and choose. Sorry.
Yeah, are we seeing better energy efficiency, like a significant amount with the newer doors?
On the outside doors, energy efficient, yes, they are better, but we're also talking about, and I'll be honest with you, they're thermally broken on the outside, so they are better, but let's face it, they're 90% glass. So, you know, we're not going from, you know, let's talk about a wall for a moment. We're not going from an R12 wall to an R30 wall. We may be going from an R3 door to an R5 door type of thing. So they are better. The big issue, and I think you had made the comment, those doors are in pretty rough shape right now. There's a lot of rusting and things going on that you know, they've kind of reached the end of their life. So that's the main reason for it. Yes? Sorry, I didn't quite hear the question, but you're asking about worried about slipping. Yeah. Yeah, what we've called for, we've done two things. We've called, there's a third thing that I wanted to raise tonight, but we've called for concrete steps, broom finish, so it's got a bit of a texture to it. We've also called for carborundum strips at the edge at the nosing of the stairs. So that's that kind of, you know, often black sandpapery kind of stuff. We've called for that at the edge of the steps, and it's also required at the top of the ramp and the bottom of the ramp. The other thing that we've called for is we're fairly confident that we can get maybe not the same profile of block that's on the columns, because right now the block goes up and then it angles back at a 45. We can get one that does a sort of a notch that way. And we're confident we can get very close to the same color, that sort of mauve color. All the concrete right now we've called to be tinted to match that. That's going to be a bit of a cost thing, but it depends on the manufacturer or the supplier of the concrete. Sometimes they don't like providing tinted concrete unless it's a precast, because it doesn't ruin, but it causes problems with their trucks, because now you've got purple concrete coming out of their truck. We'll do our best to make sure we can do that. They'll kick and scream, and so yes.
Yeah, the doors in the vestibule. What size of wheelchair is now accessible
You're getting to a question, yes. I've had a similar question, which I'll, let me just, so by code, you need 36 inches clear when the door is open. And so the doors are actually a 38-inch door. And the reason is, people always forget, when the door is in the open, there's a good example right here. When the door is in the open position, you lose the door, but people forget about the handicap bars. So, so basically you need, well, actually you need 34.5 inches by code. But by the time you open the door, you lose the thickness of the door, you've got your handicap bar, so we go with a 38-inch door. So in, you know, a wheelchair, a 38-inch wheelchair could go through as long as, you know, the bar. There's a difference between what the code requires and what somebody, I'm doing a renovation for a friend of mine who's in a wheelchair. For his cottage, and I keep saying, you know, Roger, like I gotta get this, you know, I gotta give you the 5-foot turning radius, and he's, don't worry about it, Mark, I can, you know. So it will function well, but by code, obviously, we can't play with that. Any other questions?
This door is supposedly a fire exit. I didn't see anything that made it handicap accessible if that's the case.
Right, we've spoken about this. I made the interpretation, and again, we can go back. Right now, it is a fire exit, and so, you know, we're replacing those doors primarily for, you know, again, they've kind of reached the end of their life. I have not treated it as a barrier-free. It's not required by code to have barrier-free. It is a supplementary fire exit. You've got your fire exit here. You've got another fire exit here, that sign. So I haven't treated that as a barrier-free access. There is a 6-inch step down onto that patio. We can modify that. Part of it was if you don't need it or you don't want it, is, you know, it's always nice to have a bit of a step, snow, rain, that type of stuff. But if you came back to me and said, absolutely, we want, you know, I know you talked at one point of maybe having gatherings out there, and it never quite happened because of the noise from the street, that type of thing. If that was going to be a gathering and you said you needed a barrier-free, then I would
I'm just worried that if the fire or anything is in that area,
Yeah.
we have a lot of blockers.
Yeah. By code, believe it or not, by code, you don't need to provide barrier-free at exits. No. You don't, by code, no. Not at every door, put it that way. The barrier-free requirement is to allow access to the building on a day-to-day basis. In the case of an emergency, there's the assumption that they will get out either on their own or with assistance. So that's why you don't see a ramp at every single door of a, 25 years ago, you often saw ramps at the back door. Because that's all, you know, they figured, oh, we're not gonna spend money on the front of our building. Obviously, for obvious reasons, that doesn't go over very well these days. You know, if the only door is barrier-free, but you're telling them they have to come in through the back of the building.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about it, you know, okay, where do you stop? I mean, we can make the patio barrier-free, or we can raise it so that it's flush, but then they're going onto grass, or they're like, you know, okay, so now are we doing a asphalt walkway, or, you know, that type of thing. Yeah.
The only reason it came up was Usher's guidelines over the winter said, make sure you check the door and make sure that it's open. Well, that's the winter, it's open. Yeah, you can't take anybody
Yeah.
Because the drop now is, I don't know how big, but at least,
It's a 6-inch step that I have at the, yeah. Yeah, they're the 3 or 38-inch doors as well. Yeah. Actually, let me just check that. Yeah, they're 38-inch doors. Anything else? Well, if, yes. Hmm?
If you go for a building permit, and all of these different components are included in the building permit, is there some sort of an obligation that you have to do everything?
Not at all, no. And that was my recommendation was, you know, let's put everything in that you want. At least it's covered off in the permit. If you decide not to do a certain portion, that's fine. You even have the ability, when a permit is issued, you have 1 year to start construction before you would have to reapply. But what they call that is a permit amendment, $80. So if you decided we're going to do, you know, this, but we're not going to do that, and you know, a year and a half from now you decided to do it, you could go for a permit amendment as long as there weren't any major changes, and then start that work. So just timing, yes, we are, I've spoken to the mechanical, or to the electrical and the structural engineers. I've had some comments on their drawings, but I told them, I said, go ahead and modify your drawings, don't send them to me right now until after tonight. Then I'll call them tomorrow and tell them to start getting me their drawings. I need a couple of days to assemble the permit drawings, stamp them, get prints ready. So today's Tuesday. I'd say by probably Monday I would go and make the permit application, unless of course anything comes up after this meeting that, you know, we think we should hold off on. Then the next step, while that's in for permit, will be to try and come up with some names of contractors. I was speaking to the contractor that did the Southminster Church renovation for us. I didn't go into much detail. It was just, okay, we're ready to go off this drawing. I would send them sort of a couple of the drawings just to say, so they get a feel for it, and they can tell me, yes, we're interested, no, we're too busy, that type of thing. And there's 1 or 2 other contractors that I, you know, could recommend, but if there's any others that come, you know, that you've worked with in the past or whatever, we can certainly look at. We want to make sure that we get a contractor that obviously has the experience to do it. If all they do is build garages, I've got enough residential contractors I could come up with, but I wouldn't recommend them for this because, you know, they don't do shop drawings. So, yeah, so that would be the, you know, while we're in for permit, let's get tender drawings put together. Okay, well, I thank you for your time, and we're very close. Okay, thank you.